Good afternoon and welcome back to the channel. So, I wanted to take a moment to address a particular comment I got. There was a little bit of concern on whether or not I really made the shot. Yes, I did make it. And I want to show how that is doable. So, this is going to be another long form. Don't expect it to be short and quick. And bear with me. I want to show you how you can get the most out of your tools. That comes from taking care of things, okay? If you have something good and you want it to last, you've got to take care of it. And when it comes to a firearm, basic maintenance. I know a lot of guys want to talk about how much they don't clean their tools, how much they don't clean their guns. And then they talk about the barrel being shot out, or they talk about the slide rails snapping off. Any number of issues coming up, they're avoidable with a little bit of maintenance. Now, the things that I've done to this particular Glock over the years are, one, stupendous. The other, a little over the top when it comes to the maintenance and preventative maintenance that I do to everything that I have. I drive a Toyota. I want that thing to last. So, as well regarded as a Toyota is, as well regarded as a Glock handgun is, we still have to do our part with them, okay? You can't expect to take this, use it, never do your part on cleaning it, lubricating it, and feeding it good quality ammo, and then expect it to last forever. But there are a few steps you can take to make this pistol basically last forever. I mean, there are parts that are going to wear out. There are guys that have worn these things out, genuinely. What their cleaning is, what their lubricating cycle is, I have no idea. And honestly, that's up to them. I want to show you what I do and why I'm able to still use this essentially as if it were new. Now, to be clear, this one isn't new. I've had it for a hot minute, and at this point, it's got 60,000 rounds through it as of yesterday. I apologize, but I'm in the watershed, and there are spider webs in here. That's just a reality of being in Colorado. So anyway, back on topic. I'm going to break this down. We're going to start by showing you a little bit of what's going on here. And so I'm going to take it off camera, safe direction here, and following the rules so I don't get doxxed instantly. We're going to break this down into the basic parts here in front of me. And I'm going to start with the barrel, which I have not cleaned since I worked with it yesterday and getting those 10 shots off. And it's 10 shots. I'm not worried about cleaning it, but it is dusty. It's got some crud on it from carrying it. But more importantly, I haven't really shot it in the last 2-3 weeks, but I've carried it. A reality of carrying a gun is that it's going to get dirty. I work in a environment, I live out in the country, where there is dust, there is dirt. And the reality is, it's going to get messy. So, the cool thing is, my barrel has oil on it still, because of the lubricant I use. And if you're using a high-quality lubricant, it should stay there. But it hasn't worn off. I can rub my fingers through it, and I have a fine coating on there, and it's not just wiping off entirely, okay? I'm using a metal penetrating lubricant, and this is where I say I go over the top, okay? So I'm going to show you both of the parts that I use when it comes to lubrication that increases the longevity, not only of my barrel, but also of my slide rails, locking block, and overall, at the end of the day, my frame. Because my pistol isn't battering itself to death. It's not grinding and gritting to try and rip itself apart. Now, this is my little toolkit here, okay? This is everything I need to clean, maintain, and at the end of the day, lubricate my pistol so it's ready to go. And I picked this up either at Walmart or Best Buy for like $5, okay? It's nothing fancy. It's meant for some kind of a game console. If you don't know, don't care. It happens to hold everything that I need or want for maintaining the gun. So, lubricant. There's more to this than just what it says on the bottle. We'll explain that here in a moment. If I'm really going to be using a rifle or putting a lot of rounds through a pistol, I'm going to use right here, Tetra gun grease. This stuff is top notch. Some guys will tell you don't use grease. If you're in a cold weather environment, be mindful of it. You can seize your gun up in a heartbeat. Things will knock loose, so I have an automatic adjustable center punch. If your sights drift or you need to push something back, you can adjust the spring tension that it requires to fire by twisting the back end of these automatic center punches. So, fantastic little tool to have on hand, and I find more uses for it than I care to imagine. This is more related to rifles than it is to pistols, but I have my gauges for making sure that everything is in place, that tolerances are tight. Feeler gauges are probably extreme, and most guys don't need to get into this. This is a nitty-gritty factor that I get into, and yeah, it's a fun aspect for me. But if you want to know about feeler gauges and where they come in, we'll do a separate video on that, or you can do a little research, but it's a tool worth having. And then white lithium grease. This stuff, again, many uses. We'll get into that momentarily. Front sight tension tool. Those little tiny hex nuts down at the bottom are ridiculous, and if you don't have the right tool for doing it, you're going to have an absolute bear getting it tightened back down. I do use blue Loctite, but reality is it's on the front of a pistol, high reciprocation rate, it can come loose. This one right here happens to be from True Glow, and it's phenomenal. It does exactly what I needed to. It helps me to keep things tight and snug. And then I also keep, and yes, this is how nerdy I am when it comes to Glocks, I have a Glock punch tool. You can pick these things up at SHOT Show, you can pick them up at your local gun show, wherever you want to go. I got this one for all of $1. Simple as that. Otherwise, get yourself a 1/8 inch punch. Keep it on hand. This one just happens to say Glock on it for whatever it's worth, and we'll get it to focus there. Come on. Anyway, it's a Glock punch tool. You don't have to have the one that says Glock on it. When I'm adjusting my sights or mounting new sights, I keep a spent shell casing, and the back end of that gets battered up rather than the sights on the back of the pistol. I also don't end up damaging the dovetail. And then last but not least, this is how fancy I am. That's the original brush that came with my Glock 19. Just a basic nylon brush that is messy and dirty from boring out the barrel. Polymer flexi, perfect length, unscrews in the middle, and has a place for running swabs and patches down through your barrel. And that right there is everything I keep around for taking care of my gun. Now, back on the barrel though, this is the important part of your gun. This is where your accuracy comes in. The way that your slide and barrel interact and mesh together, the moving parts, the actions that they're taking, where everything is nice and snug right here. Now, you can hear that I do have some rattle. There is some play. I mean, it's not a lot, but I said I wasn't going to go here. I'm going to do it anyway. I got my feeler gauges here, and I know that it's not a great deal of motion, but I'm going to go down here. We're going to go to 25 thousandths, which should be about right, I'm guessing, and I haven't checked it recently. But we're going to check my play here. And I put that 25 thousandths, and okay. We have clicking. Now I'm going to just shave it right there, back edge, right against the breech face, and I'm going to jam that in there, and suddenly we no longer have clicking. So very little wear. Now, that lack of wear I truly attribute to good lubrication practices and getting the grit and grime out. Let me show you the inside of my slide here. That is a dusty mess, okay? When it comes down to it, when you're shooting, when you're carrying, you're going to get lint and all kinds of crud stacked up inside of there. And I have exactly that. So, cleaning. Back to the brush. You don't need to get fancy. I'm literally doing what I would normally do, and yes, I'm overplaying it a little bit because we're on camera, so why not? Wipe the dirt out of there, get the lint out of there, make sure you don't have any physical rough debris that's going to end up causing problems with your pistol, okay? I wipe it down. The bore brush, again, I don't use a lot of solvents, but on occasion, you should be using some kind of a copper or brass solvent from the breech end of your barrel at the chamber. I shove the brush through just a couple of times. I look down through there and I check it. I don't know if I can get it aligned, but we're going to try. This has the traditional polygonal barrel, and as you can see, I still have distinct sweeps inside of there. So my barrel is not shot out, and all I do is brush it down on occasion and lubricate it. So, speaking of lubrication, when I first got this Glock 19, what I ended up doing is I took the barrel and I soaked it in motor coat. Now, what you do, you dunk the whole barrel in water, and I'm talking piping hot, boiling water, okay? Just as is, brand new, out of the box. I take that barrel out, set it in hot water for half an hour until the water's cool enough that I can put my hand in it, and then I dunk it in a cylinder full of motor coat oil. This is a metal penetrating oil, okay? Check out Project Farm. He does some great reviews on this. I've been using this product long before I knew who Project Farm was, and it is a phenomenal product. Worth every penny. This is the same bottle that I picked up 15 years ago and change. My dad told me if it's good enough for the car, it might do something good for your guns. So I've been using it on rifles, I've been using it on shotguns, and my pistols. So what I do, I fill up a narrow test tube or glass, and I just dunk the whole barrel in there and let it soak for 24 hours after warming up the barrel with hot water. Don't throw your barrel in the oven. You're going to mess up the heat temperature, you're going to jack some things and cause problems. So don't do it. But, whole barrel, soak it. And what that does, you'll take it out afterwards, wipe it down, and I mean dry. You should not be leaving oil on a barrel so that it's just sloughing off, okay? If it's doing that, you've got other problems, and it's going to cause issues when you're shooting. If you have oil in that barrel that you can visibly see it pouring around, and you fire through that, let me know, because I don't want to be anywhere in the area. It's going to cause problems. It's going to be dangerous. And I prefer not to get hurt. I don't want to see you hurt. So be safe. Wipe it down. Take this tool, put a patch in there, and swab out your barrel. Now, day to day, I'm not going to take my barrel out and soak it in this every week. That just isn't going to happen. But what I do get done is using this little needle oiler. Nothing fancy. I take it, I use a 10cc syringe for filling my ink cartridges. I take off 8 cc's. Okay, that's about 1/3, well, a quarter of the bottle. So 3 parts oil, and then 1 part motor coat. Overkill, just to be clear. It is beyond overkill. But I mix that together, give it a nice good shake, and then I use it. This particular one is a newer bottle, because the original one, I snap the tip off, and the extra oil that I draw off, I fill into another bottle. And then I start my next batch and keep using it. So that's the part there on lubrication. Now let's get into the rest of it and show you some of the details that I learned to go from lubrication and care to really getting the most out of accuracy in a pistol. So we'll switch it right up. Give me a moment. Okay, so we're back, and I want to show you the inside of this. So, same thing, we're just talking about dirt, grit, and extras. So, I want you to see there that I have a fair bit of lint and crud. Super fancy. I do not tear it apart who knows what every day. But knock it off, wipe it down, make sure you don't have any debris, especially in the rail areas, and especially not gritty debris. You can tell I'm getting super fancy here. Knock out the backside of the trigger mechanism right there on the shoe so that you don't have any crud built up into it. People talk about gritty triggers. Their number one reason that they have gritty triggers is because they don't clean out the backside of the trigger mechanism. And that right there, nice and smooth, no weird clicking, let it go, and all I did, knock off the dirt. So, regarding lubrication, it needs it, so we're going to do it on video here for all of you to see. Drops, and I'm talking tiny drops. I get a little bead built up on the end of the needle oiler there, and I just touch the point that needs it, touch the point that needs it, and that's it. Dab it with my finger. I got plenty of oil right there. Come back here to the back end, a little bit right there, and right here on the top of the cruciform, same thing. Wipe on that excess that I have on my finger, essentially gone. And I just have a light sheen, nothing crazy, covered right there. So, frame, done. Now, take the barrel, same thing, little drop. I mean, it's literally a drop. Don't get crazy with it. Don't leave it soaked. Spread it around. Up here where the smile is, you know that that's a contact point. Wipe it down right here at the bottom where the spring from the RSA is rubbing. Rub it in. Right up here in the front of the locking lugs. Get that done. And I can just make out a sheen on the whole surface of the barrel. It should look like it's glowing for you there. And that's it. I take this right here, little extra. And again, I barely put a drop on there. Rub it in a little bit. I'm going to lay the barrel into place. And I'm going to check for motion. See if you can hear that. You can hear the rubbing, but it's not gritty. And I don't have to get any fancier than that. RSA, drop it into place. Make sure it's locked to the rear. Line up. And there you go. Cleaned, lubed, done. On occasion, when you're using it, you're going to end up noticing some copper fouling or brass fouling, depending on what kind of jacketed ammo you're shooting. And on occasion, you should get a copper solvent. You should get some kind of a brass solvent. Run it here and there through the barrel. If you're doing that all the time, though, it's a harsh chemical. You might cause problems. Some say you will, some say you won't. I personally choose not to risk it. So, with that said, run it on occasion. When you start noticing fouling buildup here on the end of your barrel, run a copper solvent, run a lead solvent, wear a mask, be mindful of it, wear gloves, okay? It's harsh. And that stuff on your skin, it's nasty. So, there you have it. Now, let's get into the absolute nitty-gritty of where you can get the most accuracy out of your gun, okay? I'm going to go ahead and initially lock this back. Let's emphasize here, we have no ammo around. This is empty. I hope you can see daylight through there, as I do. This is safe. Be mindful when you're working with this. Do not get yourself hurt, and don't hurt others around you, okay? Be careful. The wasp can go away. So, with that said, let's emphasize accuracy. Let's get right into it. Okay, so getting right into accuracy, you have a few factors. People talk about grit, people talk about the way that you're holding it. They also talk about what ammo you're using. Ammo is important, so pick something of quality and understand if you're using something cheaper and then you try to sight in your range ammo or your carry ammo and you're having issues, know what the POI, POA, point of impact, point of aim, and how that works with your carry ammo. So many people buy a particular ammo because somebody recommended it, and then they don't put the time in to know how it behaves with their gun. Just because this is a Glock 19 doesn't necessarily mean that the next Glock 19 with whatever sights are on it will behave the same. It's just a reality. So, know what ammo you have, put the time in with it, learn it. The next part is, how does your gun lock up? Mine is pretty tight, okay? I'm going to show you again. Empty. Triggers to the rear. It's about to come forward. No magazine. We're empty, okay? The way that the gun locks up, so trigger is set to the fire ready position. There's no ammo in it, but I'm going to push down right here, and because there's no magazine and there's no ammo, I can push down, and you can see I have a little bit of play. It's not a lot, but it's a little bit. That is inconsequential and essentially insignificant to the end of the day, because the barrel does not start to unlock until the bullet leaves the end of the barrel, okay? People get hung up on how that happens and what's going on, and they're worried about it. They're going to worry about how they're gripping, how they're doing. I have seen guys, and I've managed to replicate it myself, that will literally hold the gun, pinch it with the web of their hand, and then one finger, okay, awkward hold like this, keep the sights on target, squeeze, steady, and break it. Now, I just dipped down there. You notice that significantly. I'm not very accurate when I do that. I know guys that can do it far better than I ever can, but people worry about how this is locking up and whether or not it's going to still be accurate. The answer is yes. Once the bullet leaves the barrel, that is when the action starts to break open. The shell casing is ejected, and then things start moving. Before that moment, this is all still tightly locked up. So having a good RSA, your recoil spring assembly, is going to make a difference, okay? The less wobble, the less play you have, you can hear a little bit because it's a Glock. That's just a reality. It's going to move. It's going to have motion, and that's fine. The other one is, I'm going to show you this. I'm pointing over my shoulder in a safe direction. The dirt is right out behind me. It's going down into the ground if there were something in there. The back of the slide here is what I want to show you. I'm going to start to squeeze the trigger here, and you can see the slide. Not a lot, but it moves. People worry about that. People get hung up on it. I'm going to tell you this. I don't. Why? Because I'm focused on my target and what my sights are doing. Even with iron sights, I target focus. I do not focus on that front sight. I know a lot of guys that do. People talk about it. They get really blue in the face talking about it, and it gets old. I target focus. When I see that orange dot, just like it was on an optic, I see that move over where I want to put that round down range, and I break the trigger to the rear. Simple as that. Every little bit of motion that's happening here in the rear of the slide, anything that's happening up here at the front, I am not concerned about. There's no reason to be, okay? Every time I squeeze this trigger, the whole slide, the barrel, it's all going to move ever so slightly, okay? I'm going to overemphasize it here, so watch the barrel hood and the slide, and you can see the barrel comes down ever so slightly. I'm not concerned about that because I'm making sure that my sights are aligned, but I'm focused on the target down range. At the point that I squeeze, that round is going to leave the barrel. It's going to end up being quite a distance off before the slide reciprocates to the rear. The shell casing is going to eject. It's going to get to the front at the point my finger's coming back forward already because I don't pin my trigger. And that round is going where I told it to because I put the effort behind it, okay? People get hung up on the idea of what's going to happen by the way that they squeeze the trigger, whether they slap the trigger, or if they just roll it through clean to the end. Every method can work, so long as at the point that the trigger breaks and you're full pull to the rear and it's releasing that firing pin, you have it on target, that's where it's going to go. So whether you want to say squeeze it, roll it, or slap it, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, so long as you can do it consistently without disrupting the sight picture, alignment to the target. And that's the emphasis, is alignment to the target, okay? So I'm going to show you here. When I'm making that shot yesterday, I had a good solid grip. I have huge hands. I am bearing down on this poor little pistol, okay? At the point that I come on target and I'm holding it, my grip is locked down right here with my left hand. My right hand is still gripping just because of the nature of holding it. I'm going to bring my finger in right here. Careful not to get too far because I can get hung up on my thumb right here on the web. Draw my trigger in full slack. Draw. I feel that last bit of staging creep, and now it's going to break. Watch this, and break. Nice and consistent every time, okay? I'm going to try to do this so I can really show you what's happening. Reset, and right there, there's a tiny little bit of take-up. But now, I'm at the wall. I don't have to worry about it. Watch this, and break. It's that easy. It's that consistent. Part of that is, I know my pistol, okay? I put in the time with it. I know how it's behaving. I can feel all of that. I have a false wall that's worn into, I don't know if it's the cruciform or on the striker assembly itself. The striker assembly is new. But when I come to the rear with the trigger, right here, it feels like it's at the wall. I come a little tiny bit further, not a lot, but I can feel a click. I can also hear it if I'm really listening to it and I don't have other noise around me. And then, right here, I'm at the wall and break. And it's simple as that. It's that consistent. Okay. We're at the point that it is about to reset. I'm going to bring it up here to the microphone. Safe direction. Release the trigger slowly. No grit. And it's about to click, and right there is reset. False wall. I just pulled it back a little bit if you can see my finger. And now I'm at the full wall and break. That's how well I've taken the time to know my Glock 19. Now, I have a Gen 5 in the safe, and no, I really don't use it. I have no reason to. This thing is still running like a top. I wanted to have a spare. The price was right. So at the end of the day, I know what I'm doing because it's mine. I know how it behaves. I know that the way that the slide is going to shift a little bit. I know that my slide, when I pull the trigger, is going to shift ever so slightly to the rear and to the left. It's not a lot. But that little bit that it's going to go, from my perspective at the back of the gun, it's going to shift slightly to the left rail and lock up really tight on the rear right here. But I'm not concerned about that at the end of the day because I'm paying attention to both of my sights, okay? They're aligned. I'm going to maintain that alignment. Both of them are blurry. That's what I see. I'm focused on the target downrange, even when I bring my sights up for elevation, okay? Mind you, my hand is behind the barrel for anyone who's getting worried here, okay? Here's the gun. Here's my hand back here. So when I break that shot, whether I can see my target or not, I'm focused on the target. I might obliterate my sight picture, okay, because I'm going to hide the target to compensate for elevation. Usually the most I have to adjust is putting the bottom of my orange dot to the top of my rear sights, and that's more than enough elevation adjustment. Yesterday, when I made that long-range 10-round shot string, all I was doing was lollipopping it, made that adjustment, and held that. I could just barely make out the top of the black from that Dirty Bird target that I was using. That's all I could see. But once I saw that, I made out the black ring, and I'm seeing that black ring as a slight edge right here above the sight, and the rest of my sights, what I'm visualizing, is a blur. I break that shot off, and then I have a feel already for where I was when I broke it, and I'm able to call that shot. I knew if I pulled a little low, I knew if I held it too tight and kept it high, or if I wavered. Again, that's knowing your piece, that's knowing how you interact with the pistol. The same does apply to a rifle, and you have to do your part. So, with that said, learn it, get the technique down, and put in the practice. If you've learned from somebody like Tim Herron or Robert Butler, these are guys that have shot longer than I've been alive, They know what they're doing. They know how to teach you the basic skills, but you have to do your part in being a good student. You can't just expect someone to say, here's how to do it, and then go do it. You got to put in the practice. You got to put in the effort. And part of how we learn that is through dry fire. People will tell you dry fire, dry fire, dry fire. I'm going to show you I do dry fire. And I have snap caps for doing exactly that. In fact, these particular ones are the Range Max, made in Italy. They have a spring in there. They have a spring-loaded primer back that'll interface with your pistol or rifle, depending on which version you have. And they tend to work out great. A lot of people are going to tell you not to do this. My extractor is relatively new, so I'm not going to be too worried. I drop it into the chamber and let it come forward. I don't do that a ton, but it's something to be mindful of. You can end up chipping off the inside edge of the extractor because the round is meant to come up from the bottom and slide under the extractor, not have the extractor expand over the top of the round. So keep that in mind. But with that in mind, I have the snap cap in there. So listen to this. It has a very distinct dull thud as that spring takes up the energy. And what you're doing is avoiding unnecessary impact and wear on your striker. If you look there, let's see if I can get this to work. You can see my ejector rod and just make out the edge of the striker pin pointing down in there. I'm going to go ahead and take this up a notch. There we go. You can see the end of the striker poking down through the breech face. And mine is just fine. That is new. I put that in sometime around 20,000 rounds and have used it ever since. Replaced because I wanted to be preventative, not because it needed it. I'd shot a lot of steel case ammo and other hard primer stuff, and so due diligence said that I replace it. So there you have it. That's the gun. The day-to-day solvent, I didn't mention this before, but I want to mention it now. Naphtha lighter fluid. This stuff right here is nothing crazy. It gets the old lubricant off of the barrel, off of the slide. You're not going to end up melting your sights, okay? You're not going to end up damaging the paint. This right here takes off the oil, takes off the gunk, and breaks it loose. This is not going to do you any good if you have copper buildup or lead fouling. That's not what it's for. But it works wonders for just basic cleaning, and afterwards it evaporates. It's not going to leave a residue. Now, many people are allergic in some form to it. It'll dry your skin out in an instant. So wear gloves, use it with caution, and whatever you do, if you smoke, don't have your cigarettes around, for Lord's sake, please. You will hurt yourself. This stuff is quite flammable, and once it vaporizes, it's not pretty. The other side is, be mindful on your skin. The gloves are a good idea. Anytime you're working with solvents and oils, it is a good idea to wear gloves. I didn't wear it for the oiling purposes. I'm going to go wash my hands, and that's going to be that, and I'll be fine. But you definitely want to be careful. You're working with lead and various other fouling and debris that can cause harmful issues to your body. So be mindful of that. Be careful. I hope this helped you out, and you learned a little something new, as well as getting excessively nitty-gritty on the details about how to take care of your firearm and have it last for a very long time. So there you are. Thanks for taking the time to join me. I wish you the best, and God bless.